My parents called me the ugly high school graduate. My sister scoffed. Then they all disowned me. 10 years later, I'm sitting in my apartment holding an old crumpled photo in my hands. It shows a girl in jeans and a white blouse standing to the side of a group of smartly dressed classmates. That's me. 9 years ago, prom night, which was the beginning of the end. My phone on the table lights up with a message from my mother. "Rox, we need your help, urgently." I put the photo back in the box and look at the screen. I don't reply. Instead, I close my eyes and go back there again, to the day when everything fell apart. I was 18. It had been a year since I graduated from school, but the prom was only now being held. It's a tradition in our town so that everyone has time to grow up, change, and find themselves. I had been preparing for this evening for months. I saved money from my part-time job washing cars at a car wash for $8 an hour. The work was hard. My back hurt every evening, but I endured it because I wanted to be beautiful. I wanted my parents to be proud of me for once. I bought a dress at a thrift store on the corner of Maple Street. It was pale pink, with lace on the sleeves and a small bow at the waist. It wasn't new, of course. The previous owner must have worn it to a wedding because it smelled of perfume and had small snags on the back. But for me, it was perfect. When I tried it on at home in front of the mirror, I felt like a princess. For the first time in a long time. My mother, Charlize, looked at it and said, "Well, it's not bad. The main thing is that it doesn't fall apart." My father, Dwayne, didn't even look up from his newspaper. My younger sister, Ivy, was twirling in front of the mirror in her new dress. They had bought it for her for $300 for her birthday a week earlier. It was blue, satin, with sequins. She was supposed to wear it to prom in a year, but she was already showing off that she would be the most beautiful girl there. "Your dress looks old," she said to me then. I said nothing. I was used to it. 2 hours before the prom started, I went to the garage. I wanted to find my mother's old shoes, which she had promised to give me. Black, with low heels, a little worn, but they went well with the dress. My mother said they were somewhere on the shelf between the boxes of Christmas decorations. Our garage was a real mess. My father worked as a fire safety inspector, checking buildings for compliance with regulations, but he never cleaned up after himself. My mother worked as a dispatcher at a taxi company, taking calls and coordinating drivers, and she never had time to tidy up at home. So the garage was filled with old furniture, boxes, broken bicycles, and paint cans. I made my way through it all, carefully lifting the hem of my dress so as not to catch it on anything. I found a shelf, reached for a box of shoes, and that's when the hem caught on a rusty nail sticking out of a wooden rack. I jerked back instinctively and heard the horrible sound of fabric tearing. From the bodice to the very bottom. A straight line, as if someone had cut it with scissors. I stood in the middle of the garage, holding both halves of the dress in my hands, and couldn't breathe. I had nothing else. I didn't have the money to buy a new one in 2 hours. There wasn't even time to go into town. And in our town, there were only a couple of clothing stores, and they all closed at 5, and it was already 5:30. My mother came in to see why I was taking so long. She saw me with my torn dress and shrugged. "Well, Rox, you'll have to wear something else," she said, as if it were no big deal, as if I hadn't spent 3 months' salary on that dress, as if it weren't my only chance to look normal. I rushed to my room and rummaged through my closet. Everything I owned, not a single dress, not a single skirt that would work, just the old jeans I wore to work and the white blouse I wore to interviews, plus a couple of t-shirts and sweatpants. I knocked on Ivy's door. "Lend me your dress," I asked. She was sitting at her dressing table, painting her eyelashes. "What? No, it's my dress. It's new. I don't want you to wear it." "Ivy, please, I don't have anything." "That's not my problem." I stood in the doorway waiting for her to change her mind, but she just turned back to the mirror. I went to prom in jeans and a white blouse, old sneakers that I had washed the day before. I put my hair in a ponytail because I didn't even have the energy to do anything with it. When I entered the hall where the party was being held, the first thing I noticed was the looks. Surprised, then mocking, All around me were girls in luxurious dresses and boys in suits and ties, and I looked like I had come to clean the classroom instead of attend a party. My classmate Brianna, who always turned up her nose and whose parents owned a dental clinic, said loudly to her friend Taylor, "God, did she seriously come in jeans? This is prom, not a trip to the supermarket." Taylor giggled. "Maybe she likes to stand out?" Stand out in a bad way. I heard every word. I tried to smile to pretend that I didn't care. But inside, something broke with every glance, with every whisper. Others whispered too. Someone pointed. A boy named Kyle, who had once asked me out and I had turned him down, said loudly, "Well, Rox has always been a little weird." My parents arrived an hour later. My mother looked at me and pressed her lips together so tightly that they turned white. My father turned away and went to talk to the other parents. Ivy stood nearby in her blue dress, which sparkled in the light, and snorted quietly, just loud enough for me to hear. "Rox, why don't you go home and change?" my mother whispered, leaning toward me. "Into what?" I replied just as quietly. "I don't have anything else." She recoiled as if I had hit her. "Then at least stand somewhere to the side. Don't show yourself." She left. My father left too. Ivy went to take pictures with her friends. They all gathered near the photo zone, smiling and hugging each other. When the photographer suggested taking a family photo, my mother said loudly so that everyone could hear, "Let's do it without Rox. She doesn't look very festive today." I stood to the side and watched my family smile for the camera, without me. My father put his arm around my mother's shoulders. Ivy stood in the middle. They looked happy. I sat in the corner by the drinks table all evening. I didn't dance. I didn't talk to anyone. I just waited for it to finally end. When everyone started slow dancing, I went outside and sat on a bench by the entrance, looking at the stars. The year after that was difficult. I didn't get into college. My grades weren't good enough. I worked at a car wash, then at a roadside diner. I served coffee and hamburgers to truckers. I lived with my parents because it was impossible to rent my own place on my salary. I made $900 a month, and the cheapest room cost $500. We hardly talked. My mother was always busy. Work, then TV. My father watched sports channels. Ivy was getting ready for her prom, talking about the boy she was dating, her plans for college. I was just a shadow in their house. And then there was that dinner. An ordinary Friday dinner in October. We sat at the table, me, my parents, Ivy. My mother had made chicken and potatoes. We were silent, chewing. And suddenly, my mother looked at me and said, "You know, Rox, I still can't forget how ugly you looked at that prom." I looked up from my plate. I thought I had misheard her. "What?" "Well, that prom. A year ago. All my friends asked why my daughter came in jeans. I was so embarrassed. People thought we couldn't afford to buy you a decent dress." My father nodded, swallowing a bite of potato. "It didn't look very good," he said. Ivy snorted contemptuously. Something inside me snapped. "I tore my dress 2 hours before the party," I said, trying to stay calm. "In our garage. I came to you, Mom, and you just said I'd have to wear something else." "You shouldn't have been so clumsy," my mother replied, cutting a piece of chicken. "You could have asked to borrow something," Ivy added. "I did. You said no." "Because my dress was new. I didn't want you to wear it out and stretch it." I got up from the table. My hands were shaking. "Were you ashamed of me?" I asked quietly. "Because I came in jeans? I'm ashamed to have parents like you, who only care about what people will say, who never supported me, who didn't even ask if I was okay after that night." "Don't yell at us," my father said without looking up. "I'm not yelling. I'm telling the truth." "Rox, don't be ungrateful," my mother interjected. "We raised you, fed you, gave you a roof over your head." "And that's all you did?" Ivy rolled her eyes and got up from the table. "I'm not going to listen to this drama." I looked at them all, and I realized that nothing would change. I went to my room and closed the door. The next morning, my father knocked and came in. "Pack your things," he said. "You're leaving." "Where?" That's your problem. I packed 2 bags. My father stood by the door and waited. My mother was in the kitchen. Ivy was in her room. I took the bags and left without looking back. I stood on the street with 2 bags in my hands and didn't know where to go. The October wind was cold. The sky was covered with gray clouds. I had $230 in my pocket, all my savings. I went to the library. They had free internet there. I sat down at a computer and started looking for ads for rooms to rent. Most rooms cost between $500 and $700 a month. I didn't even have enough for the first month. I scrolled through dozens of ads. I was about to give up when I saw one. Short, without a photo. Room for rent, $450 a month. Oak Ridge Street, call Estelle. I dialed the number with trembling fingers. The phone was answered after the 3rd ring. Hello? I heard an elderly voice. Good afternoon. I'm calling about the room. Is it still available? Yes, dear. Can you come and see it? I wrote down the address and took the bus. Oak Ridge Street was on the outskirts of town, where the houses were far apart and the sidewalks were cracked with age. The house was old, 1-story, with peeling blue paint on the walls and a small porch. I knocked on the door. An 80-year-old woman with gray hair pulled back in a bun opened the door. She was short, wearing a sweater with deer on it and glasses on a chain. Are you Rox? She asked. Yes. Come in. Inside, it smelled of lavender and old books. The furniture was old-fashioned, a wooden dresser, a rug with a floral pattern, framed photographs on the walls. I'm Estelle, the woman said. I lived here with my husband for 40 years. He died 5 years ago. I've been alone ever since. It's hard to be alone, especially at night. She led me to a small room at the end of the hallway. There was a bed, a table, a chair, and a wardrobe. The window overlooked the backyard where an old apple tree grew. $450 a month, Estelle said, plus half for utilities. The kitchen is shared, the bathroom too. I'm not noisy, I don't drink, I don't smoke. I hope you don't either. I'm not noisy, I said quietly. Estelle looked at me intently, at my 2 bags, at my face, probably full of despair. When do you want to move in? Today, if possible. She nodded. It's possible. I paid her for the first month. I had $70 left. Estelle didn't ask why I was looking for a place to live with 2 bags and such empty eyes. She just showed me where the towels were, where the kettle was, where to keep the groceries. The first night in the new place was the hardest. I lay on a strange bed, stared at the ceiling, and couldn't believe this was really happening, that my family had just thrown me out, that I was on my own now. I cried quietly so Estelle wouldn't hear. The next morning, I started looking for a job. I went to 3 stores, 2 coffee shops, and 1 restaurant. Everywhere they said they would call, but no one called. On the 4th day, I got a job as a cashier at Fresh Mart Supermarket, a large, always cold place with bright lights that hurt my eyes. The salary was $950 a month. The schedule was 6 days a week, 8 hours a day. The manager, a man in his 40s named Victor, said I had to start tomorrow. My first day at the cash register was a nightmare. I couldn't keep up with scanning the items. I got confused with the buttons. People in line sighed and commented. One woman said, "Maybe you should learn first and then work?" I said nothing. I smiled. I continued. In the evening, I came home exhausted. Estelle always sat in the living room with a book or knitting. She greeted me with a short nod. She didn't ask how my day was. She didn't bother me with conversation. But there was always a kettle with hot tea and a plate of cookies on the kitchen table. The first few weeks, I hardly ate. My money went to rent, utilities, and transportation. I bought the cheapest foods, pasta, bread, eggs. Estelle noticed. Sometimes she left a container of soup or stewed vegetables in the refrigerator. She didn't say it was for me, but I knew. I cried at night. I remembered my mother's words. Ugly. I remembered how my father said, "We don't need you anymore." I remembered Ivy's indifference. Sometimes I wanted to call them, to ask for forgiveness, to go back. But then I thought, what should I ask forgiveness for? For telling the truth? One evening, a month after the move, I was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of tea. My hands were shaking, my eyes red from crying. Estelle came in for some water, saw me, and stopped. "Child, are you okay?" I wanted to say yes, to smile, but instead I burst into tears. Estelle came over, sat down next to me, and took my hand. She didn't say anything. She just sat there, and I told her everything. About the prom, about the torn dress, about that dinner, about how my parents called me ugly and kicked me out. The words poured out and I couldn't stop. Estelle listened silently. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she poured herself some tea, took a sip, and said, "Child, people who truly love you would never humiliate you for the sake of their own ego. Your family was afraid to admit their own failures, so it was easier for them to blame you." I wiped my eyes. But they're my parents. That doesn't mean they're right. Being a parent isn't just about giving birth and feeding. It's about supporting, loving, and protecting. They didn't do that. What should I do now? Estelle looked at me seriously. Make yourself so that they regret their choice, not for revenge, but for yourself, to prove to yourself that you are worth more. Those words stuck with me. I thought about them for days, and finally, I made a decision. I started small. I gave up the bus and walked to work, saving $15 a week. I stopped buying coffee and made it at home. I saved every dollar. After 2 months, I had enough for a gym membership. Not a fancy fitness center, but an old basement gym on Fern Avenue that smelled of sweat and iron. The membership cost $30 a month. The trainer, a guy in his 30s named Cody, showed me the basic exercises. I went 3 times a week after work. At first it was hard. My muscles ached. I could barely lift the dumbbells. But gradually, it got easier. At the same time, I started taking care of myself. I watched videos on the internet, how to properly care for my skin, how to do my hair, how to choose clothes. I bought the cheapest cosmetics at the supermarket where I worked, with an employee discount. My hair grew back. It had always been thin, light brown, unremarkable. But I started using masks that I made myself from eggs and honey. My hair became thicker and shinier. Estelle watched these changes silently. Sometimes she would say, "You look beautiful today, child." Or, "These exercises are helping you. I can see it." I felt better, not happier. The pain of my mother's words still lingered inside me, but stronger. 6 months later, one of my colleagues, a girl named Kayla, approached me during lunch break. "Rox, I wanted to ask you something. Do you know about Radiant Life?" I shook my head. It's a local cosmetics company. They make creams, shampoos, stuff like that. And now they're looking for models for their catalogs. They don't pay much, but it's a start. You have a pretty face, in my opinion. You could give it a try. I laughed. Me? A model? Why not? At least give it a try. What have you got to lose? She gave me a phone number. I held the piece of paper in my hands for a whole week, not daring to call. I thought it was pointless, that they would look at me and turn me down. But then I remembered Estelle's words. Make yourself so they'll regret it. I called. The woman on the other end of the line, who introduced herself as Lauren, said I could come in for an audition on Friday at 2 p.m. I took the day off work. Victor grumbled, but he let me. On Friday, I woke up at 6 a.m, even though the audition wasn't until 2. I couldn't sleep. I tried on all my clothes and chose my best jeans and a simple white t-shirt. I put on some light makeup. Estelle saw me and smiled. "You look great, kid. Good luck." Radiant Life was located in a small office on the 2nd floor of an old building in the city center. I climbed the stairs, my heart pounding. There were 4 other girls sitting in the reception area. They were all beautiful, confident, with perfect makeup and fashionable clothes. I felt my confidence melt away. I was called in last. I entered a small room with spotlights and a white backdrop. There was a photographer, a man in his 50s with a gray beard and glasses, and Lauren, a woman in her mid-40s, slim, wearing a business suit. "Hi, Rox," Lauren said. "Please stand in front of the backdrop." I stood there. I was trembling. The photographer came over and looked at my face from different angles. He asked me to turn around, to smile, not to smile. He took a few pictures. Then he said something quietly to Lauren. She nodded. I waited for the verdict. The photographer looked at me and said, "You have a special face. Natural. Not perfect, but that's what makes it unique. I like it." For the first time in a long time, I smiled genuinely. 10 years is a long time, long enough to become a different person. I am 29, and when I look in the mirror, I hardly recognize the girl who once stood at graduation in jeans. My hair is long, well-groomed, falling in waves to my shoulders. My figure is toned. I still go to the same basement gym in Cody, even though I can now afford any fitness center in town. My face hasn't changed. Same gray eyes, same straight nose, same thin lips. But now I know how to emphasize it all. My face is on billboards all over Oregon, advertising creams, shampoos, and local clothing brands. Radiant Life became my springboard. After the first photo shoot, I was invited to a second, then a third. A year later, I signed a contract. 3 years later, other companies noticed me. I didn't become a supermodel. I didn't make it onto the covers of international magazines, but I'm known in the region. I get paid pretty well, $3,000 per shoot, sometimes more. 2 years ago, I moved out of Estelle's room and into my own apartment, a 2-bedroom with light-colored walls and large windows. But I still visit Estelle twice a week. She's the only one who knows where I came from. Estelle is 92 now. She's weaker, moves slower, but her mind is sharp. I pay for a cleaner who comes 3 times a week and a nurse who helps with her medication. Estelle refused at first, but I insisted. "You saved me once," I told her. "Now it's my turn." I didn't think about my parents for years. I blocked their numbers and deleted them from all social media. They didn't exist for me, and I didn't exist for them. Until the day my agent Marcy called and said, "Rox, there's an offer. The Miss Oregon pageant. They want you to participate." I was sitting in a coffee shop on Glisson Street sipping a latte and reviewing the contract for my next shoot. A beauty pageant. Seriously? It's not just about beauty. There's also a talent show, speeches, charity. It's good exposure, and the money's not bad. The winner gets $20,000 plus contracts. Plus, it opens doors to bigger projects. I put down my cup. "Marcy, I'm a model, not a beauty pageant contestant. They're different things. But you can be both. Rox, think of it as a challenge. You deserve to be there." The word deserve struck a chord inside me. I remembered the girl in jeans who didn't even deserve to be in the family photo. "Okay," I said. "I'll try." The preparation took 3 months. Marcy hired a catwalk coach for me, a woman named Vivian in her 60s, a former Miss Oregon winner from 1989. She was slim, fit, with perfect posture and a sharp tongue. "Rox, you walk like a model in a photo shoot," she said during our first session. "But catwalk walking in a beauty pageant is completely different. Here you need grace, lightness, and a smile. You have to look like you're not trying." We trained 3 times a week for 2 hours. Vivian was ruthless. Shoulders back, chin up, smile. Not so tense, natural. You're not at a funeral, Rox. In addition to walking, there were speech rehearsals. The contest organizers gave us a theme. What does it mean to you to be a woman today? I sat at home with a blank sheet of paper and couldn't write a single word. What does it mean to be a woman? To be rejected by your family? To survive on your own? To prove something to people who didn't love you? I rewrote the text 10 times. Marcy listened to each version and shook her head. "Too much pathos. Speak from the heart, Rox. Tell your story." "I don't want to tell my story." "Then tell someone else's, or just say what you believe in." I didn't know what I believed in, but I tried to find the words. Another part of the preparation was choosing a dress for the evening event. Marcy took me to a boutique where we tried on 20 dresses. In the end, we chose a dark blue, form-fitting dress with open shoulders and a small train. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. "You look amazing," Marcy said. I didn't answer. I looked at my reflection and thought, would the girl in jeans ever believe she would become like this? The talent show was the hardest part. I couldn't sing or dance. I didn't play any musical instruments. Marcy suggested a monologue or a presentation, but I wanted something special. A year ago, I started taking pictures. At first, just for myself, with my phone. Then I bought an inexpensive camera and started walking the streets of Portland, photographing people. Homeless people under bridges, old people in parks, children playing on the sidewalks, black and white photos, simple but honest. I decided to show a presentation of these works with a short story about how beauty is not just about appearance. These are the stories behind the faces. Vivian said it was risky. Participants usually sing or dance. Photos are unusual. Let it be unusual, I replied. The night before the competition, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling and thinking, why am I doing this? Why do I need to prove something? To whom? I called Estelle at 2 a.m. Child, are you awake? She asked in a sleepy voice. Sorry to wake you. I'm just nervous. That's normal. But remember, you've already won. 10 years ago, you were standing on the street with 2 bags, and now you're here. That's already a victory. In the morning, I went to see her. We drank tea in the kitchen, and she held my hand. I'm proud of you, she said. Those were words I had never heard from my mother. The competition was held in a large concert hall in downtown Portland. 25 contestants, all beautiful, all confident, in expensive dresses and professional makeup. I stood backstage and tried to breathe evenly. The first stage was to come out in evening gowns. The host announced our names one by one. When mine was called, I walked out onto the stage. The spotlights were blinding. I could only see the front rows. Estelle was sitting there in her best sweater with pearl buttons, smiling through her tears. I walked down the runway as Vivian had taught me. Shoulders back, chin up, smile. I turned around, stopped in the center, and paused. The audience applauded. The second stage was the talent show. The participants sang, danced, and played the piano. One girl performed an acrobatic act. When it was my turn, I went on stage with my laptop and projector. I showed a presentation of my photographs, black and white faces of people, a homeless man smiling as he fed the pigeons, an old woman selling flowers on the street corner, a girl drawing with chalk on the asphalt. And I said, beauty is not just what we see on billboards or in magazines. Beauty is stories. Every person has their own story, and every story deserves to be noticed. The hall was quiet. When I finished, there was a pause. Then, applause. The third stage, speeches. The 5 finalists stood on stage. We were asked questions in turn. I was asked, "What does it mean to you to be a woman today?" I took the microphone. My voice trembled, but I began, "Being a woman today means having the right to choose your own path, even if your family is against it, to choose yourself, even if it hurts, to choose to get up after every fall and keep going." I didn't always have that choice. There were times when I felt like I was worthless, but I chose to believe in myself, and that made me who I am. The audience applauded for a long time. When they announced the winner, I stood in line with the other 4 finalists. My heart was pounding so loudly that I was afraid everyone would hear it. The host opened the envelope. And this year's Miss Oregon is Rox Delaney. I couldn't believe it. I stood there looking at the audience until the host came over and took my hand. "Rox, it's you. You won." They put a crown on my head, light, shiny, with rhinestones. I was given a bouquet of red roses. Cameras flashed from all sides. I was led to the center of the stage to the state anthem. I saw Estelle crying and clapping, standing up, holding onto the back of her chair. After the ceremony, there were interviews, journalists from local newspapers, television cameras. I answered questions and smiled, not fully realizing what was happening. Someone asked, "Rox, how do you feel?" I answered honestly, I feel like I finally deserve to be here. By the time I finally got home that evening, it was almost midnight. I sat down on the sofa, took off my crown, put it on the table, and took out my phone. 23 missed calls, 48 messages. Most of them were from acquaintances, colleagues, and friends. Congratulations, compliments, emojis with crowns. But one message stood out, from an unknown number. "Rox, it's Mom. We saw you on TV. We are so proud of you. Maybe we can meet up. We miss you." I stared at the screen. My fingers froze over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to reply. Part of me wanted to hear that they were proud, that they were sorry. But I blocked the number. The next day, another message arrived. From my father's social media account, which I hadn't blocked because I didn't know he was on there. "Rox, it's Dad. We're so happy for you. You've always been special. Let's talk?" I blocked him too. Then I wrote to Ivy, from a new account I didn't know. "Sis, hi, it's Ivy. I saw you at the competition. You were amazing. My kids, Liam is 5, Mia is 3, would love to meet their famous aunt. Maybe we can meet up. They saw you on TV and keep asking about you." The message included a photo of Ivy with 2 toddlers at a playground. She had gained weight, looked tired, her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. The children were smiling, the boy holding a toy car, the girl a doll. I looked at the photo for a long time. Then I blocked the account. But the messages didn't stop. They wrote through mutual acquaintances, through a distant relative, Aunt Gloria, my father's sister, whom I hadn't seen in 10 years, through my former neighbor, Mrs. Carter, who lived across the street from us. "Rox, your parents really want to talk to you. They regret what happened. Give them a chance. Family is the most important thing." I didn't respond to anyone. Marcy noticed that I was distracted on set. "Rox, are you okay? You won the contest, got 3 new offers, and you look like you lost." "I'm fine, just tired." But that wasn't true. I hadn't slept properly in a week. Every time my phone beeped, I jumped. Every time I saw an unknown number, I thought, it's them again. Estelle noticed it too. "Sweetie, what's bothering you?" I sat in her kitchen stirring my tea. "They're writing. My parents, my sister, they want to meet." "And how do you feel?" "I don't know. Angry? Hurt? Part of me wants to hear that they're sorry, but another part says it's all fake, that they want something from me." Estelle nodded. "Maybe you're right, but maybe they really do regret it. People change. Not always, but sometimes." "What if they don't change?" "Then you'll leave again. But this time, you won't be broken. You'll be strong." One evening, 2 months after the contest, I was returning home after filming an ad campaign for a local shoe brand. It was late, around 9 o'clock. I climbed the stairs to my 3rd-floor apartment, searching for my keys in my bag, and then I saw them. My parents were sitting on their knees in front of my door. My mother was crying. Her face was red, swollen, and aged. Her hair was gray and cut short. My father was holding some papers, some kind of documents with stamps. He had lost weight, his hair had turned gray, and his shoulders were hunched. They looked up when they saw me. "Rox," my mother said through her tears, her voice hoarse. "Please, we need your help. We're on the verge of bankruptcy." I froze at the stairs, clutching the keys in my hand so tightly that they dug into my palm. I stood at the stairs and looked at my parents, who were kneeling in front of my door. Part of me wanted to turn around and leave. Another part wanted to yell at them, to ask where they were 10 years ago when I needed their support. But I just stood there. "Rox, please," my mother repeated, wiping her tears with her sweater sleeve. "We really need help. We didn't know who else to turn to." I stepped forward and took out my keys. "Stand up," I said quietly. They got up. My father struggled, holding onto the wall. My mother grabbed his arm for support. "I'm not going to talk to you here," I continued. "Go home. I'll think about it." "But Rox, go." They looked at each other. My father nodded, and they slowly walked toward the stairs. My mother looked back at me before disappearing around the corner. I went into the apartment, closed the door, and slid down it to the floor. I sat there, hugging my knees, until my breathing steadied. Then I called Estelle. She had moved into a nursing home 6 months ago. I paid for the best place for her, a private room with a balcony, 3 meals a day, medical care. Estelle refused at first, saying it was too expensive, but I insisted. She gave me a home when I needed it. Now it was my turn. "Estelle, they came," I said when she answered. "Your parents?" "Yes, they were kneeling at my door. They say they're on the verge of bankruptcy." Estelle was silent. "And how do you feel?" "Nothing. Empty." I looked at them and felt nothing. "That's normal, child. After what they did, it's normal." "They want me to listen to them." "Do you want to?" I thought about it. I don't know. Part of me says they deserve what's happening to them, and another part says I'll regret it if I don't give them a chance to explain. Estelle sighed. "Don't do it for them, Rox. Do it for yourself, so you won't have any regrets. So you'll know you did everything you could. How they handle it is up to them." I thanked her and hung up. The next day, I sent my mother a short message. "Let's meet at the Good Morning coffee shop on Clark Street tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Everyone come." My mother replied a minute later, "Thank you, Rox. We'll be there." I arrived 15 minutes before the appointed time. The cafe was small and cozy, with wooden tables and the smell of freshly baked bread. I ordered coffee and sat down at a table by the window. They arrived at 2 o'clock sharp. Father, Mother, and Ivy. Mom looked a little better than yesterday. Her hair was combed, she wore light makeup, but her eyes were still red. Dad was wearing the old jacket I remembered from my childhood. Ivy held her bag with both hands and looked nervous. They sat down across from me. The waitress approached, but I waved her away. "Talk," I said, without looking up from my coffee. My father cleared his throat. "Rox, we realize we behaved badly. 10 years ago. We shouldn't have said those things. We shouldn't have kicked you out." I looked up. "Go on." My mother wiped her nose with a napkin. "We want to explain what happened. 2 years ago, your father invested our savings in a business venture with his former colleague, Randy. He was opening an auto repair shop. He promised big profits. We gave him $30,000. It was all our savings." My father nodded. "Randy disappeared 6 months later. It turned out he had debts. Our money went to cover his debts, not the business. We tried to find him, took him to court, but nothing worked." "And now we have debts," his mother continued. "We took out a loan against the house to cover the costs, but I lost my job at the taxi company. It closed down, and your father doesn't earn enough. We can't pay off the loan. The bank says it will take the house in 3 months if we don't find the money." I listened silently. I tried to feel something. Pity, sympathy, even triumph. But inside, there was emptiness. "How much do you need?" I asked. Her father looked at the papers he was holding. $38,000. That will cover the debt and give us time to find a new job for your mother." Ivy finally spoke. "Rox, I know we have no right to ask, but they are our parents. They are getting old. I can't help them. I have 2 children. My husband works as a builder. We're barely making ends meet." I looked at her. She really did look tired, worn out. A far cry from the confident girl in the blue dress who had snorted at me 10 years ago. "Why do you think I should help?" I asked. My mother cried again. "Because we're family. Because we're your parents. We made a mistake, Rox. We admit that. But everyone makes mistakes." I took a sip of coffee. It had gone cold. "You called me ugly," I said quietly. "You said you were ashamed of me. You threw me out on the street with no money, no support. For 10 years, I didn't get a single call from you, not a single message, not a single, 'How are you?' And now that you're in trouble, you remember me." "Rox, we're sorry," my father said. "We're really sorry." I looked into his eyes. I tried to see sincerity there. All I saw was despair. I didn't know if it was genuine remorse or just fear of losing the house. But Estelle was right. I had to do this for myself. "I won't give you $38,000, I said. but I'll give you $1,000 a month until you get your situation under control. It's a gift, not a loan. I don't expect you to pay me back. But I'm not doing this because you're good parents. I'm doing this because I'm a good person." My mother rushed toward me, wanting to hug me, but I raised my hand. "No, this is my choice. But that doesn't mean everything is forgotten." My father nodded. "Thank you, Rox. We are very grateful." But I saw disappointment in his eyes. They clearly hoped for more. The next day, I set up an automatic transfer of $1,000 to my father's account. The first transfer went through on the first day of the month. My mother wrote, "Thank you, baby. You're saving us." I didn't reply. Life went on. Shootings, contracts, new projects. Marcy offered me a role in a regional bank commercial. A big contract, $15,000. I agreed. Everything was quiet for 2 months. My parents didn't write except for short thank you notes after each transfer. I almost forgot about them. Until one day Marley called me. Marley ran a small beauty salon on Harrison Avenue. I went to her for a haircut every 2 months. We weren't close friends, but we knew each other well. "Rox, hi," she said when I answered. "I have a delicate question for you." "Yes?" "Your mom comes to me for manicures. She was here yesterday, and she talked about you." I tensed up. What exactly did she say? Marley paused. "She complained. She said you only give them $1,000 a month, that you're a star, a model, rich, and you give them pennies, like you're feeding beggars. She said that after everything they've done for you, raised you, clothed you, fed you, you repay them with such ingratitude." I squeezed the phone so hard that my fingers hurt. Did she really say that? "Yes, I thought you knew. I'm sorry if I shouldn't have said anything, but it seemed wrong to keep quiet." I thanked her and hung up. I sat on the couch and stared at the empty wall. I felt something inside me break. Finally. I gave them a chance. I gave them money, even though I didn't have to. And behind my back, they discussed that it wasn't enough. I called Marley again. "Marley, can you record it if she says it again? Just turn on the voice recorder on your phone." "Rox, are you sure?" "Yes." A week later, Marley sent me the audio recording. I listened to it on my headphones, sitting in my apartment. My mother's voice, clear and recognizable. "You know, Marley, my daughter Rox is a model now. You've probably seen her on TV. We're so proud. But you know what she does? She gives us $1,000 a month. 1,000. Can you imagine? She earns thousands from modeling, lives in a luxurious apartment, and throws pennies at us, as if we were beggars. After everything we've done for her, raised her, fed her, clothed her, and she's so ungrateful." Another voice, Marley. "Maybe she has her reasons?" Her mother snorted. "What reasons? She's offended by some nonsense from 10 years ago. We were tired then. We said something wrong. But this is family. Family should forgive." I turned off the recording. I sat in silence and felt anger filling me. Not explosive, not loud. Cold, hard anger. I opened the bank app and canceled the automatic transfer. Then I wrote a short message to my parents. "I know you talk behind my back, that thousands of dollars aren't enough for you, that I'm ungrateful. The support stops from this moment on. Don't write to me anymore." I sent it and blocked their numbers on my phone. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I didn't answer. Then another call, and another. I turned off the sound. In the evening, as I was getting ready for bed, the phone rang again. It was Ivy's number. I hadn't blocked it. I answered. "Rox, what happened?" Ivy's voice was panicked. "Mom is crying, saying you cut them off." "Yes, and I did the right thing." "But why?" "Ask Mom. Let her tell you what she said about me at the beauty salon." "Rox, don't be like that. They're old. They didn't think—" "They didn't think? Ivy, they called me ungrateful. They said I was throwing pennies at them, after I gave them $1,000 a month, even though I didn't have to." "Rox, please, they just—" I interrupted her. "I gave them a chance. One chance. They blew it." I hung up and blocked Ivy's number too. An hour later, the phone rang again. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Rocks!" My father was yelling so loud that I moved the phone away from my ear. "You ungrateful, selfish girl. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, and you betrayed us for your pride. They're going to take our house away. Do you understand that? We'll end up on the street." I listened silently. I didn't interrupt. I let him yell it out. When he finally fell silent, I said quietly, "You put yourselves out on the street. 10 years ago, you did this to me. Now you're paying for it." I hung up without waiting for a response. I blocked the number. I turned off my phone. I sat in the darkness of my apartment and cried, not out of pity for them, out of relief. I was finally free. 2 years is enough time to understand that freedom doesn't come all at once. It comes gradually, like dawn after a long night. I'm 31, and I'm no longer a model. A year ago, I finished my last shoot for a regional sportswear company and felt relieved. My modeling career gave me confidence, money, visibility, but it didn't give me meaning. Now I run a small modeling school for girls from disadvantaged families. It's called Step Forward. I rent a small space on the second floor of an old building on Miller Avenue. 3 rooms, 1 for classes, 1 for the wardrobe, and 1 for my little office. The girls come for free. I teach them how to walk, pose, and take care of themselves. But most importantly, I teach them to believe in themselves. Most of them are from poor families, foster families, or shelters. Girls who have never heard that they are beautiful or worthy of something better. I know what that's like. That's why I do it. I earn money by giving private consultations to models who want to improve their skills. It's enough to pay for the rent, to live on, to pay for Estelle's care in a nursing home. Estelle is now 94 years old. She has weakened considerably over the past year. Her hands shake. She walks with a cane. Her eyesight is deteriorating. But her mind is still clear. I visit her 3 times a week. We drink tea, talk, sometimes just sit in silence. She's the only one who knows my whole story, the only one I can call family. I haven't heard anything about my parents since that night when my father yelled into the phone. Sometimes I wondered what had happened to them. Did the bank take their house? Did they find jobs? But I didn't look for answers. It wasn't my problem. Ivy didn't get in touch either. I sometimes thought about her children, but not enough to unblock her number. Until one day I received a letter. Not an email, a regular paper letter in an envelope with a stamp and a postmark. The address was written in neat handwriting. I recognized it immediately. Ivy. I held the envelope in my hands for almost an hour without opening it. I sat in my office after class, looked at it, and didn't know if I wanted to read what was inside. Finally, I tore open the envelope. Inside was a 2-page letter, handwritten in the same neat handwriting. "Rox, I don't know if you'll read this. I don't know if you have the right to read it after everything that's happened, but I have to write. Not for myself, for you. I'm breaking up with Jason. It's a long story, but in short, we haven't been happy for a long time. He drank, I endured. He yelled, I kept quiet. Sounds familiar, right? I've been thinking a lot over the last 2 years. About you, about that dinner 10 years ago when Mom called you ugly, about how I sat there and didn't say anything, how I snorted as if it were funny. I was 16. I thought it was an excuse. But it's not an excuse. I was old enough to know it was wrong, old enough to protect you, but I didn't. I was afraid that if I took your side, they would turn away from me too. So I chose to remain silent. I chose them over you, and now I realize how mean that was. In recent years, when your parents complained about you, saying you were ungrateful, I said nothing. But inside, I knew they were wrong. You gave them a chance. You gave them money, even though you didn't have to, and they ruined everything. As always. My parents lost their house a year ago. The bank took it away. Now they rent a small apartment on the outskirts of town. My mom works as a cleaner in an office center. My dad is a security guard at a supermarket. They've grown old and broken, but they still don't admit their mistakes. My mom still says that you betrayed them, that they didn't deserve to be treated that way. I don't talk to them anymore. I haven't seen them in a year. My children don't know their grandparents, and I don't feel sorry for them. Rox, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that you were right. About everything. You had the right to leave. You had the right to refuse to help them after what they said behind your back. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry I didn't defend you then. I'm sorry I didn't contact you sooner to tell you this. Maybe someday we can talk, but I understand if we can't. Ivy. I read the letter twice. Then I folded it and put it on the table. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry, just a strange sense of relief. I sat there until evening, looking out the window at the street where the lights were coming on. The next day, I went to Estelle's. She was sitting in her room in a chair by the window, knitting a scarf. When I came in, she looked up and smiled. "Child, I'm so glad you came." I sat down next to her and told her about Ivy's letter. Estelle listened silently, nodding. When I finished, she put down her knitting. "And how do you feel?" "I don't know. Relief, I guess, that she finally understood. But I'm not ready to talk to her." "That's okay. Forgiveness doesn't mean you have to immediately let someone back into your life. Forgiveness is letting go of the pain they caused you. Whether to let them back in is another question." I nodded. "I think maybe someday, but not now." "That's wise." That evening, I wrote Ivy a short email. "Thank you for your honesty. Your letter means a lot to me. Maybe someday we'll talk, but not now. I need time." I sent it and felt something inside me relax. The next day was Saturday. I had classes scheduled with 3 new girls. They arrived at 10 in the morning. 2 of them were confident and talkative. The third, a 15-year-old girl named Kira, stood to the side, quiet, with her head down. She was wearing old jeans and a wrinkled gray t-shirt. Her hair was unwashed and tied back in a ponytail. She kept her arms crossed over her chest, as if trying to make herself smaller. I walked over to her. "Hi, Kira. I'm Rox." She nodded without looking up. "Is this your first time here?" "Yes." "Great. Tell me a little about yourself." She shrugged. "There's nothing to tell. The social worker said it would help me with my confidence." "And you want to be more confident?" She finally looked at me. Her eyes were gray and sad. "I don't know. I'm not pretty. Not like the other girls. So I thought maybe they could teach me here." I crouched down to be at eye level with her. "You know, Kira, when I was 18, I went to prom in jeans. All the other girls were in beautiful dresses, and I was in jeans and a white blouse. People laughed. They whispered behind my back. Even my parents were ashamed of me." Kira looked at me in surprise. "Really? Really? And you know what I realized many years later? That dinner didn't define me. It just showed me who was worthy of my love and who wasn't. People who really care about you won't laugh at how you look. They'll see you, the real you." Kira blinked, as if trying not to cry. "But what if no one sees that?" "Then start by seeing it yourself. Beauty isn't just about appearance, Kira. Beauty is how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you look at the world, and we can work on that together." She smiled timidly. "Okay. Great. Now show me how you walk." Kira began to walk around the room, uncertainly, slouching. I gently corrected her. Shoulders back, chin up, eyes straight ahead. The other girls joined in. We worked for 2 hours. When the class was over, Kira came up to me. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For not saying I was hopeless." I hugged her. "You're not hopeless. You just haven't seen the real you, but you will. I promise." In the evening, I sat in my apartment with a cup of tea and looked at an old graduation photo that I still kept in a box. A girl in jeans among her elegantly dressed classmates. I remembered that evening, that pain, that shame. But now, looking at the photo, I felt no pain. I felt gratitude, because that night showed me the truth. It showed me that my parents' love was conditional, that they only loved me when I met their expectations. And that freed me. It freed me from the need to meet anyone's expectations but my own. I didn't become a world-class supermodel. I don't have millions. I didn't take grand revenge on my parents. They destroyed their own lives. But I am free. Free from their opinions, their expectations, the need for their approval. And that is the greatest victory I could have achieved. I put the photo back in the box. I will not look at it anymore, not because I want to forget, but because I no longer need reminders of where I came from. The only thing that matters is where I'm going, and I'm moving forward. To the girls who need what I didn't have, support, faith, unconditional love. To Estelle, who remains my true family. To myself, the person I've become. Not perfect, not without scars, but free. And that's enough. The next morning, I woke up early, made coffee, and opened my notebook. I wrote a list of girls waiting for a place at the school. There were 12 of them. I could have taken 3 more. I thought about Kira, her sad eyes, how she smiled for the first time during class. I thought about all the girls who, like me once, feel useless, not pretty enough, not worthy enough, and I realized that my work was just beginning. The phone rang. Estelle. "Child, you haven't forgotten, have you? Today is Saturday. You promised to come for lunch." I smiled. "Of course I haven't forgotten. I'll be there in an hour." "Great, I'll be waiting." I hung up, finished my coffee, and looked out the window. The sun was rising over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. A new day, a new opportunity, a new life. I was ready.